All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is David Costa. I am the Renegade Aviator, and this is my opportunity to just go over the We Hear You letter from the Reno Air Racing Association and the upcoming Roswell air races. So I promised you some additional videos from the last one where I kind of chastised a bunch of people, and boy, I'm really looking serious today. All right, I'm trying not to be too serious about this, but thank you for all the great comments from the last video. I really appreciate it. I am running. This is a two-pilot operation here, and I am running as a single pilot today. So you're going to have to excuse a couple of things. I'm going to be looking one way, reading stuff, looking at my notes. This is unscripted and it's raw, and I can take your comments live. So if you want to make a comment and if you want to join the conversation, this is your choice. A couple of people last time were offended by things I may have said. Some people thought I was too harsh, and none of that is my intent. Overall, the comments were fantastic because I say things like they are, take them or leave it. It's my opinion. You can have your own opinion. I won't cry. So what I always tell people is if you don't have a role model, become one. And if you don't have a place to race, build one. So this all started back before, right? We had the Reno air races, and we were kicked out of Reno. They were kicked out of Reno. We all were kicked out of Reno, and now we're in Roswell. So before I start getting involved here, I wanted to start with this. I am not a racer. I'm not an event organizer. I'm simply an air show pilot, but more importantly, I'm a fan of air racing. And the only place I know, except for one, that I can see 5 classes of racing this September in only 13 days is in Roswell, New Mexico. There's one other place that they're racing, and it's also in New Mexico. So for everybody complaining that we're all the way down in New Mexico, there's 2 races. There's one in Roswell, and there's going to be one in Las Cruces. So this is really good for air racing. I've been racing. I've been at the races, I guess, for many years. Not as long as a lot of you people, and longer than a whole bunch of you. I've been an owner of a race jet, and I've crewed at the Reno Air races in the jet class for several years. Who knows how many? I'm not an expert, but I'm also not an idiot. But I've seen tragedy up close. I've personally been involved in the petty bullshit that happens at any event like this where you have a bunch of A personalities get together. And I've enjoyed a majority of what I've seen at the air races. So here's the opportunity. What I'm going to do today is I'm simply going to read through the letter that RARA put out, and it says, "We hear you." And some of you may seen it. Some of you may have seen it. Boy, you can tell this isn't scripted or edited. And some of you have had some comments online. I encourage you to comment in whatever social media platform that you are listening to this live with. And if you're seeing this on a replay, I encourage you to comment, because this is an opportunity for us to just sit here and talk. I'm not going to add a whole bunch of stuff except some of my opinions and my comments as I read the letter, because I think it's really important that I put this out on my channels. That said, some housekeeping. I am looking for people in all 5 classes of racing. We have 13 days left until we race. If you are one of the class presidents or class leadership, or even somebody that represents the class as a racer or a crew member, I'd love to talk to you. Crew members are equally as important as the racers, because without the crew members, man, and I can tell you this from my own air show effort, without my crew, I'm nothing. And so you race teams out there, if you want to jump on one of these events with me and bring your crew, I'm all for that, because I really believe in the race crews as much as I do the race pilots. We as pilots get the fun job, and the crew does all the hard work, as do the organizers. So we may bring on some of the organizers as well. I'm looking to talk to sponsors, and I'm looking to talk to fans. If you're one of these super fans and you've been there a long time and you want to get some stuff off your chest, as long as we do it in a positive fashion, with an open mind, right? We don't have to agree. We never need to agree. I welcome that here. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to waste a bunch of time with the lead up. That's my housekeeping. I'm going to just read through this letter, and you've all seen it. I'm going to share my screen with you here so you can see this. And that is, hold on, let me just bring that tab in here. And I said I'm flying solo, man, so I got to do this just like that. Look at that. So you've seen that letter. If you go to airrace.org, you can find this letter. And what I want to do is read this to you, and I'll stop along the way and I'll make some comments. If you want to comment, please do. I really want to hear comments as I'm reading this thing through, either during the live event or on the replay. So here we go. It's a simple letter, an open letter to race fans, and it says, "We hear you. We know there's a fair amount of frustration as well as a lot of opinions and questions out there from our air racing family. First, we just want to acknowledge that everyone is entitled to their opinions, and we respect that. We hope to clear up some misunderstanding by giving a deeper dive into some of what the organization has been working through over the past couple of years, starting with the relocation process." So this is going to hit home with a bunch of the comments that we've seen out there. First and foremost, for anyone out there thinking RARA had any part in the decision to leave Reno, we did not. We were told in late 2022 we could have one more race in 2023, period. We tried hard to change minds and even reached out to leaders in the community, but there were not enough people in influential positions who were willing to go to bat in a meaningful way to get the decision reversed. We know this was heartbreaking for our fans. It was also heartbreaking for RARA and the Reno community, particularly small businesses and nonprofit organizations who benefited greatly from the event. We were presented with a decision. Do we have one final event, then throw in the towel, or do we go for it and try to keep the event alive by searching for a new home, understanding that it would be a long, difficult, expensive process that may or may not yield any viable location? I'm going to stop there for a second, because if you want to guarantee, ladies and gentlemen, racing ain't it, right? Racing is risk. Just the whole concept of racing is a risk. So I'll continue. Quote, "The RARA board met and discussed these options, ultimately deciding, unanimously we should say, that the event is worth saving." That's an amazing statement right there, and I'll get back to that later. "Our next step was to speak to race class leadership and our volunteer department leadership to make sure there was sufficient support for RARA to seek a new home. We recognize that without the support of these two groups, there would be no point in starting a search. Thankfully, all classes were supportive, and an overwhelming majority of our volunteer leaders were willing to join us on this journey to get the air races established in a new home." I just lost my, here we go. Feeling encouraged and united, we decided to move forward with the plan to search for a new location. So this was not done in the vacuum. This is my comments. This wasn't done in the vacuum. We had the support. They had the support of the very people that needed to back this up. The support doesn't mean that all the people involved were doing the hard work. There was a small core group here doing that. Let me continue so I don't add too much to this letter. I'm back to a quote. Quote, we announced that 2023 would be the final race in Reno, that we would seek a new home. To our great surprise, we received 38 inquiries from different locations around the country expressing interest in becoming that home. Encouraged, we released an RFP in May of that year to give them and any other interested parties more information about what it would take to host the event. We established a site selection committee that consisted of RARA board members, operational personnel, and race pilots, all with extensive experience at national championship air races who could help determine the viability of all potential locations. From the initial 38 inquiries, 11 took the next step and participated in 2 required bidders conferences in Reno that summer and gave them a 2-day deep dive into the event, the expenses, logistical and operational needs, etc. In August of 2023, 6 of those 11 then submitted full proposals to become the next home of the national championship air races. Those locations were Buckeye, Arizona, Roswell, New Mexico, Casper, Wyoming, Pueblo, Colorado, Thermal, California, and Wendover, Utah. That's it. Of all the other spaces people have talked about, ladies and gentlemen, that was it. Out of the initial 38, we had 6 come through the line that wanted to be the partners and vie for this location. I'm back to reading their words so I don't add too much, so you don't get confused here with my opinion. Quote, before we move on, we know there are some who think there were other options near Reno. While there were a couple of places we considered as possibly viable, none of them submitted a response to the RFP, attended the bidders conferences, nor was there a willingness to make anywhere near the necessary investment or improvements in order to make a site ready to host our event. I'm going to stop right there for a second. You have any idea? I don't. I think I do, but I don't have any idea what's required to host one of these events and what it takes from that local community to welcome 7 classes of racing, to fly around pylons and bring in the mobs of people that we hope are going to come over the years. So it's my comment there. The community needs to be just as enthusiastic as the fans, the racers, and everybody else involved. I just lost my spot here. Okay, I'm going to go back here. It's a quote. We knew going in, and it was verified through our entire vetting process. Some locations had advantages economically, but couldn't host all classes or had safety issues that were insurmountable. Some had plenty of space, but insufficient safety, security, emergency services, and some were logistically and economically challenged, but provided plenty of space and operational capabilities. However different the event might look in a new location, we were still confident that we would be able to operate and preserve it for the future. A lot of stuff going on there. So we're talking now of some other, I won't go too far afield here because I really do want to get back and look at some of your comments that I'm seeing some of them come in here. I'm quoting again. We then embarked on a year-long journey out of those 6 candidates, remember, to select the new home of the air races. The first step was to visit all 6 locations to assess the capabilities of the community, event site, operational, safety, and emergency service capabilities, as well as other factors in order to determine whether all 6 could be fully viable options. These visits included various members of the site selection committee with decades of experience who were willing to lend their operational expertise to our evaluation process. After about 6 months of site visits, based on the information gathered, we narrowed the field to Casper, Pueblo, and Roswell. These were the 3 locations that had the potential operational capacity to host all 7 classes of aircraft that participate in the national championship air races. I'm going to stop there again and just add my comment. It's mirroring some of the stuff I'm getting from people that are listening here. There's a lot of moving parts and pieces, from hospitals, trauma centers, security, as we mentioned. I get it. Yes, hotels come into play there, but there's some operational things, safety on the course. I'm not going to talk about that yet. I may get to it at the end of this thing about some of the comments on that from some of the classes. But everyone was involved and everyone was kept informed. Let me continue with their letter. I just want to give them the due respect of reading this letter to you. I quote, "The next step was to take an even deeper dive into the final 3 locations. These visits included many of the same people, but added leadership from the race classes." I'm going to read that again. Leadership from the race classes who had the opportunity to meet with the communities, be flown over the proposed race courses, and lend their advice and opinions to the process. We met extensively with community leaders from all 3 locations to get more specific details on how their city could handle the event, including the fact that all of the locations would have required more than $10 million in investments from the local communities or states in order to prepare them for the races. To their credit, all were willing to do what it took to get their airplanes ready, to get their airports ready, my bad. That's amazing, right? Now I got some comments, people saying, no way, it's not true. This is from them. I'm reading their stuff, and it's a lot of moving parts. So I appreciate the comments. I really do. Anybody commenting here, I really appreciate it because I think it's important. Ultimately, I'm quoting again, ultimately, when taking all factors into account, including race, class, and operations input, economics, safety, security, emergency services, airspace availability, threat of development encroachment, that's what killed us in Reno, one of many, and many more. That was my comment there. I'm back to quoting. It was put to a final vote by the RARA board. It was a tough decision, but the location that checked the most boxes and would give us the opportunity to race all 7 classes in the first year was Roswell. And that's how the board voted. So my comments, Renegade Aviator comments here. Okay, I get it. It was a vote. Remember, not everything was going to check all the boxes. I don't think there is a perfect race venue. I really don't. And I've not been involved in this. And I'm not some Pollyanna for rah-rah. As I said in my last video, these people have become my friends because of the work that they've done. And some of you may say, look, I don't agree with all this, or I don't think that's true. You wouldn't put out a letter like this. This is Dave's opinion again. I wouldn't have done this. I wouldn't have put out a letter explaining all this because I don't think they have to, but I appreciate the fact that they did because it takes guts. When you put this kind of level of detail out here, you're going to get people pick it apart. So I'm trying to read this to you in context. Back to the letter, stop with Dave comments. I quote, "We fully understood the challenges of moving a 60-year event from an area of more than 500,000 people to one of just under 50,000 people. But the commitment and investment from the state of New Mexico and the city of Roswell to preparing the site and helping us to market the event for future growth was significant. It's important to note that what we had in Reno was developed and evolved over almost 6 decades, trying to replicate every nuance in a new location in just a year's time was never a realistic goal. But we felt Roswell gave us the best chance and the most significant head start. We won't sugarcoat it. The last year has been extremely challenging. For all the difficulties we knew we would face, there were so many more we couldn't have predicted. RARA's staff and board have worked tirelessly, but equally our volunteers have been incredible, taking time away from their families and jobs to help us prepare for the first event in the new home, training new volunteers, and sitting in on countless meetings. We are truly humbled by their dedication, and nothing has exemplified the true heart of the September family like what we've seen from our volunteers through this process. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to stop there and I'm going to comment again, because I don't know, I run a small air show team, and I can't tell you the amount of work that me, my crew chief, our volunteers, my wife, everybody puts up with just for a little air show act. I can't imagine the amount of work it takes to put on a big event like this, whether it's restarting or just happening every year. But that, Kaylin, thank you. Most definitely, that's what makes our air racing community so great, and that's true. Because it's selfless what's being done. Nobody's getting rich off of air racing. Trust me. I know these people. If you want to make $1 million in aviation, start with 2. Well, I'm living proof of it. So anyway, let me go back here, and I'm going to quote again, because I'm not going to pontificate the entire time. I'm reading their words. Quote, in January 2025, this is key right here, and I really want to focus here for a second. In January 2025, we held a race course evaluation period for all of the classes to assess the proposed courses and make any requested changes prior to our first Roswell Pylon Racing Seminar in May. The courses were adjusted, the permanent pylons were fabricated and placed, and many requested changes were addressed. Okay? Quote, then late in May, we held PRS, after which we received even more input as to the necessities for the classes to participate in the National Championship air races. Up to this point and into June, let me read this again. Quote, up through this point and into June, while there were a number of issues raised, we had every reason to believe that they were solvable in the available time and that all 7 classes would participate in the National Championship air races in September. Following PRS, the sport class gave us their concerns in mid-June, so RARA and the city set to work on resolving those issues. After working for nearly a month to address their concerns and preserve their participation, the sport class ultimately informed us of their withdrawal in July. This was very disappointing, as we felt we could resolve enough issues for the majority of the classes to participate, and our goal was always to host all 7 race classes. But we worked with them to get a joint message on their withdrawal out to our fans. All right, you know what? I'm not going to point a finger at sport class. I'm not going to point the finger at RARA. I get it. There was time to make things. When you fly a course, when you actually fly the course, you may have noticed some other things. I wasn't there, right? I'm not a sport class pilot, and I'm not a sport class person. So I would love to talk to sport class. I really would. And I'm planning to go, by the way, to Las Cruces and watch them fly out there, because I support air racing. I'm a fan. I'm not here to second guess sport class or the unlimiteds. I'll get to that in a second. So there was ample time. Comments were made. Safety is number one, right? I get it. Safety is first. And we as pilots in command, we get to make that call. Any race pilot can go out there and choose not to race. Any class can go out there and choose not to race. I understand that. And I'm not taking that away as a pilot myself. Anyway, back to the letter. It's a great letter, by the way. Again, I wouldn't have done it. I don't think, I say we never are. I don't like to argue, convince, or explain, but I think this is helpful. I hope it is. Those of you that are making these, that are making the comments, I'm really happy for that. So it seems like we're getting a bunch of comments that seem to agree with this. Let me go back to the letter. Quote, during this time, we opened up the racer registration period, but after a short period of time, we noticed that there were no unlimited registrations. So we started reaching out and doing everything we could to ensure that they would participate in the event. This is a large part of the reason we extended the registration period longer than initially planned, let me use their words, which naturally delayed our ability to announce participants. Makes sense, right? Quote, despite those efforts, the unlimited class informed us on the evening of August 8th that they had held a meeting and decided to withdraw from participation in the 2025 National Championship air races. August, after all this time. Quote, no specific reasons were given at that time, but they noted that they would share them at a later date. Obviously, we're again disappointed, but we worked with the class to get a joint release of the news to our fans as quickly as possible. All right, Dave's comments again. You know what? Unlimited airplanes are time machines. These things are pieces of history. And back in the 60s, literally, you could pick up a P-51 for $7,500, $10,000, 15 grand. You can't buy a prop blade for a P-51 right now for less than 15 grand. And the owners of these aircraft have literally millions of dollars put into them. So to expect them to race them, they want to race them if they had unlimited money, time, and could find parts. Here's an opinion of mine. And I really want to trigger somebody with this one. This is Dave's opinion, Renegade Aviator opinion. If you want to see unlimited racing, we're going to have to start having a new unlimited class with some really, over the top new technology, super fast race, kind of like the Formula Ones and car racing. If you really want to keep that together, I think there could be sponsors behind that. But let's be honest. I happen to have a friend, and I know what they've invested in their airplane. I'll tell you what, I don't think I'd want to run that around the race course as much as I love the fans and love air racing. So that's the topic for another one. I would love to have a conversation with the unlimited people, anybody in unlimited, because I think it's unique. I think we're always going to miss the big unlimiteds. We're always going to do that. We're always going to love to go back in time 20 years and watch the sound of those engines, listen to the sound of those engines and watch them fly. Let me go back to the letter. Quote, regarding both sport and unlimited future participation, we will be meeting with both groups following this inaugural event to discuss all the issues and work towards securing their participation in future events, starting in 2026. Initial conversations indicate that they share that desire, so we're hopeful we will get it done. Okay, I don't know what that means, right? They can't speak for the other classes, nor can I, nor can you. But we've got 5 classes and we've got a race that are going to be showing up. So let me continue. Quote, through all this time, RARA has been working with the FAA and the city of Roswell to ensure that all safety-related race course concerns raised by the classes are addressed. And we have completed registration for the Formula One, biplane, T6, jet, and stall drag classes to compete at the event in September. We worked hard to bring warbird demonstrations and displays to the event and are making announcements as those are confirmed. We know it's not racing, but those aircraft are an integral part of our history, an incredibly important part of our event. You know what? I'll just say something here. We will see, right? We will see. I'm looking, yeah, I guess we'll wait and see. Of course, we'll wait and see. We'll see what people do. We can't control somebody else. I tell my kids, I try to tell myself, I can't control other people's actions. I can only move forward and do what I believe is the best thing. And I'm going to stand here and hold my head high and say thank you again to RARA, because they're doing what they can. Nobody needs to agree with every damn thing we do. Look at the news, look at politics, look at everything we get involved with. Half the people think you're an idiot. Half the people think you're a rock star. You decide. Do you want to address the people that are going to stand by you, or the people that are going to throw stones at you? And a lot of times, here's the other thing. This is, again, I got one more paragraph. Let me do this and I'll come back. Quote, "We are open to respond to anyone who has a question via our website, our social media outlets, and the Air Racing fan page on Facebook, a neutral site that has agreed to be the host for such questions. We hope you'll continue to support us as we strive to bring you what we feel will be an excellent first showing in Roswell, despite the absence of the sport and unlimited classes, and look forward to celebrating their return and implementing what we are sure will be many lessons learned in this first year. We don't expect it to be perfect, but with our September family there, it can truly be an amazing start for this next era of air racing." I'm finishing my book. It's called Shut Up, Show Up, Be Excellent. Excellence is a decision. Perfection is bullshit. Okay? Perfection is that glimmer, that one time, right? One day there might be a perfect race, a perfect day, a perfect lap. Those are fleeting. Perfection should be embraced when you see it. It should be held on to. You should, embrace that and go, my God, I'm so lucky to have seen perfection. But the best we can decide in life is to shut up, show up, and be excellent. And I really challenge people. I think call me the guy there, or call me an idiot. I don't care. Does this not sound like an excellent explanation? Do you not think there was an excellent effort? Was it perfect? No. But nobody at RARA, none of the racers are expecting excellence. I mean, look up to some of the race planes. You won't find every race aircraft excellent. You won't find every P-51 excellent. So let's go out there. I'm just reading this. I'm going to be there. I can't bring my airplane. I would love to go out there and flew. I would have loved to have flown their air show. I just can't afford to get my jet there and back, right? But I'm going to show up as a fan. I'm going to buy a ticket just like you. I'm going to show up, buy a ticket, walk around, talk to the racers, say thank you, talk to the people who are making this thing happen, and be grateful that I was at the first air race in Roswell, New Mexico. Please, thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening to this. I'll be back. And my shout out one more time, if you're involved in a race team, if you're involved in a class, if you're one of the people involved in this event as a volunteer, as a local person, or just as a super fan, I'd love to do a show just with a couple of fans of varying opinions, and let's talk, because this is a time to celebrate. I'm at 34 minutes. I don't go much longer than 30. This is a time to celebrate, ladies and gentlemen, because we have a race in 13 days. It's happening. It is happening. I hope to see you there. I thank you for joining. It's been my pleasure to read this letter to you. and give you a little bit of insight for those of you that may not have read it. Now, as a Marine, some of you have said that they were amazed that Dave Costa, the Renegade Aviator, can even read. Yes, crayon-eating Marine Corps infantry guys do know how to read. I took Hooked on Phonics when I was a kid. Anyway, thanks everybody. A little bit of a dry thing from a Renegade Aviator side, but I am pleased that you came. This is David Costa. I am the Renegade Aviator.